What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 176 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. He's Tony Michael in Atlanta, Georgia. And tonight we are talking about The Exorcist 1973, the reboot, requel, sequel coming from David Gordon Green and Company. Supposedly this October, it's a sequel to the original. Let's talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live! Woo! It is Sunday, October the 15th, 2023, 6:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's another Sunday show. Yes, you are not dreaming. You are not in an alternate reality. Our regular time is 6 p.m. Monday nights, but the last couple weeks we've had to do our shows on Sundays. That's why we're doing the show on Sunday tonight. Here we are, episode 176. Tony,
yes.
How are you?
It's Sunday. Time for another work week. Yay.
That's right. Do you consider the beginning of the work week, or do you consider the beginning of a week Sunday or Monday? Like, I know on the calendar, Sunday is technically the beginning of the week. For me, I always see as Monday. Like, Sunday to me is still like the weekend. So, like, if I'm on, like today is Sunday, I might say like next Friday, right? I might not say this Friday because I'm still on Sunday. But if I hit Monday, I would say this Friday. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, are you?
Sure. I think if I had a 9-to-5er, yes. But because I'm self-employed, like I had to do something this morning for, normally I really don't do Sunday shoots, but occasionally for this, she's one of my high profile agents who like does 50% of my yearly business. So hey. Like when she's asking, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Yep, where do you want me? Okay, 9 o'clock Sunday morning.
Tony, I know it's 3 a.m., but I need you to come out right now to shoot these night shots. I'm good. I gotta go, babe. I gotta go.
Yep, I do it. Look at Chrissy. I gotta go. She needs me 3 o'clock in the morning. But I mean, and that's the thing with being self-employed. You're pretty much on the clock 24/7, and so there really is no official start of the work week. Every day is like, and because you're a voiceover actor, so I mean, I don't know if you get called in for weekend stuff, but I don't know if that's different.
No, because not. I mean, I'm trying to think of my life if I've ever done something. I mean, I've had home studio sessions where I will be given the script on a Friday, and because I'm recording from home, I can do it over the weekend and then send it off to my agent Monday morning. Right. But actually getting booked into a studio in downtown Toronto, no, that's usually a Monday to Friday thing. I'll get an email from my agent, and it's, it can be, I can have like a couple of days notice, or sometimes it can be like the next day. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, I wish it were like that. But, look, there's two sides to it. One, I could have no business and be working a 9-to-5 job that I hate, right?
That's true.
So, if any agent needs me on a weekend, and it's not often, but when they do, like this morning, I go and do it. And
hey, it's money, man. You know what I mean? You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
The joys of being self-employed.
There you go.
Yeah.
$20 super chat comes in from Taylor Paulson. Thank you, Taylor. Very generous super chat. Really appreciate that. It says, hey, dudes! Tony, check out Killing Rapunzel live Bucket Fest. Around the 30-minute mark, we play Motley Crue.
Crew.
Oh, Crew. That's an exclamation mark. Okay. I was like, isn't it Crew?
Yeah.
I don't have my glasses on. Motley Crue, exclamation mark. Dave, I got kicked out of band in high school because I was wearing Christmas ornaments as earrings. What? Really? They kicked you out of band because you were wearing... That's amazing. I think that's cool. You guys rock. Well, thank you, Taylor. Really appreciate that, Tony. You'll have to check that out.
I will definitely check it out for sure.
So here we are, episode 176, and Tony, it is look, I mean, one of the great horror movies of our time.
The greatest. The greatest.
And for you, it is your favorite horror movie of all time.
Top of Mount Everest for horror movies.
It's up there. For me, it is one of the greatest. It would definitely be depending on how I'm feeling, it might slip out of my top 5, but there are days, depending on how I'm feeling, it would definitely be in my top 5, but it is absolutely one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And of course, that is 1973's The Exorcist.
Caveat in there, should be watched only currently right now to appreciate the artistry and what they accomplished in 1973. I still believe you should watch it on VHS only because, like you have mentioned, and I see it, when you do watch it on 4K digital, the technology has not caught up quite yet to making it clean, because there are certain shots and certain scenes where you see, when I say joke or gaff, I'm referring to the stunt that they're pulling off. You see how it's being done. And I think it pulled like the strings and whatnot when she's rising up from the bed. Unfortunately, it just hasn't, they haven't caught up to each other where it's smoothly clean.
I'm not an expert on transfers, but
neither am
I have noticed this. Works. I have noticed this not just with 4K, I've noticed it with Blu-ray. And one of the first movies I noticed it with was, actually, funny enough, anyway, I've got so many thoughts in my head. Yeah, so one of the issues that can sometimes happen, and I'm sure we're not the only ones that have noticed this, that when you have a Blu-ray transfer of an old movie, and a movie that was not shot in HD, was never released in high definition, when they are going back to the original negative and they are, whatever they do, I don't pretend to know, I'd have to look this up, but they transfer it to HD. A lot of the post-production work in terms of removing the wires, I think as Empire Strikes Back, I might have noticed this. With certain things, maybe things are levitating, things are floating, people are being picked up in the air, whatever it is, obviously they're on wires. And when you watch the original standard definition SD version 4:3 aspect ratio on your fucking, 21-inch television in 1985, whatever they've done to, mask out, remove the wires holds up, right? Because, right. It's great. But when you do the transfer, that goes away. Some are better than others. I believe The Empire Strikes Back was one of the first where I notice it, when Luke is on Dagobah and he's getting trained by Yoda, and he's sort of on one hand on his, upside down. Yoda's on kind of his foot, and he's moving the rocks with his mind. And I have a big, TV. I mean, on your phone, you may not see it, but on my big TV, I'm watching it on Blu-ray, and I can see as the rock is getting to levitate, it's very faint, but I can see the wire that's kind of picking it up. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. It's too bad they haven't then gone. I don't know how much this would cost, probably millions of dollars to go in and remask out all that shit. But the problem is you do see it. The Exorcist suffers from that as well. When Reagan is levitating, if you look closely enough, you can see the wire that is picking her up. On Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
When she's catwalking down the stairs, you can see, or the stunt person, you can see the wires. You can see a little bit,
because I know, because that actually was one of the main reasons why Friedkin didn't want it in the theatrical cut,
because they didn't. It looked too.
It didn't work. Then they were able to release it, mask it out in standard def, but then when it got transferred into high def, it's like you would have to go, and this can be done. You can go in and digitally remove this, but I don't know how much this would cost or what the process would be and why they don't go that extra step to do that. I noticed it with the Blu-ray transfer of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, when it's a long shot down the hall and Freddy has got the kid that's the wizard master up by his throat, and you can see the wires, and it's like, God, like, why don't they go in? Why don't they go in and anyway.
That's why, dude, I'm telling you, you're hearing me say this now, like vinyl records had their resurrection and have become a thing again. I'm a firm believer that I think because of this reason, VHS may, because I'm starting to see even in some of our stores, VHS for sale. And I was like looking at this like, son of a bitch. And that's how it started with vinyl. You'd have this little section of vinyl records. Now you go into stores and it's like it's the 80s again. It's a huge fucking section, and you can get almost anything on vinyl now. And then I saw just this little area of VHS, and I'm like, that's how it starts. Because I think people are seeing that when you watch a movie like The Exorcist or the original Halloween, or like what you said with Star Wars or Nightmare on Elm Street, you're getting better quality watching it on VHS. Even on your flat screen TVs, you're still getting the better quality of how it was originally shot. And I won't be surprised if you start seeing an uptake of people collecting VHS tapes again for that reason.
Perhaps that could be it. I mean, obviously the quality of a Blu-ray and 4K is in terms of the clarity and the detail
for new movies,
is fantastic.
Absolutely, but I'm talking like old school movies.
Well, even some old movies aren't bad. Like the Blu-ray 4K of Jaws is absolutely fantastic. I think where it really suffers is when there are certain, to your point, certain practical effects where in post-production back in the day, they would mask out, the wires, remove them in post, and it suffers from that. When you do the transfer, that goes away, and now it's kind of like, but to your point as well, there are some old movies that just look better, on VHS in standard def, because it's got that gritty, real film. You don't want to make a movie shot on 35, an old school film from the 60s or the 70s, too clean, too pristine, too 4K. It loses its grit and its charm and its spookiness. You know what I mean? So anyways, we digress.
Especially the horror movies you and I grew up with in the 80s. There's just, I just love popping it in and just watching it on VHS.
No, I get it. I totally get it. So The Exorcist, 1973, your favorite horror movie of all time. The Exorcist 2, of course. The Exorcist 3, which of course is Legion.
Great detective movie.
It's a great film. It should never have been called The Exorcist 3. We know why it was. But
old George C.
Scott, but what a great film. And then of course there was The Exorcist, the beginning, and there were two versions of that. And of course, Blumhouse bought the rights, spent I believe about $400 million. That's on the rights to to the IP. That's not them spending $400 million on 3 movies. That's well, I guess technically you could look at it that way, but that's not the production budget of the 3 films. It's so David Gordon Green, I believe it's the same crew or most of the same crew that did the Halloween trilogy that has gone off to do The Exorcist.
Chris Johnson, right? That did the mask for Michael, is doing
Christopher Nelson.
Is doing the effects on The Exorcist.
He is, yeah. And you will see that. I mean, it could be the same DP as well. You will often see crews work together on different shows and projects, and I believe that's what's happening here.
If it works and you got a team, I get it. You work with the team that it works with. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And so here we are. The Exorcist. It's just called The Exorcist. The Blumhouse wants to give The Exorcist sequel. It is a direct sequel to the original, pretending all the others don't exist. They are giving it the Halloween treatment. They are obviously going to start with 1. They have the rights to do 3. It wouldn't surprise me if the first Exorcist ends in a way that you could leave it if you want to, or you could continue it if you wanted to, very similar to Halloween 18. You could have left it like that. He burned in the house, whatever. You absolutely could have left it like that. It wouldn't surprise me if that's what they do here, because there's no guarantees that this is going to be a success, or at least enough of a success to warrant, making more. However, when you spend 400, I believe it was 400 million, but I can get fact checked on that if somebody wants to do it. But I believe it was for 3 films.
When you spend some money, yeah.
Yeah. So they're definitely going to market the hell out of this first one, and hopefully it's good. But is it is a direct sequel to the original, arguably one of the granddaddies of say modern horror, but I think you know what I mean when I say that. But certainly one of the great grandfathers of horror, an iconic film in pop culture.
Certainly one of the movies I wish I could have been old enough to be around when it first came out to experience what everybody was experiencing for the first time.
Agreed.
It's one of those movies.
Yeah, and it's hard for people to understand. That's why I always say, you have to watch movies within their context, and imagine, like, when I watch The Exorcist and I think of 1973 and the world that it was, and we've talked about this, it was a much more conservative world. It was a much more religious world. The internet didn't exist. The
Catholic Church was
huge. The access to information, to refute religion or to refute the story, or to have, like, it was a very different world. It was a very, very different world. So when people, there were Christians that were going to see The Exorcist that were leaving the movie theater because they couldn't deal with the imagery of what they were seeing. Now, for today's audiences, it's very tame, but that's why you have to imagine 1973, very, very different world. And they were coming out of there, they were fainting, some were throwing up, and this isn't because of the blood, guts, and gore of like a Terrifier. This is because of the psychological residual effects that the film was having on especially the very devout religious Christians. But they wanted to go see it, and the lineups were around the block and all that kind of stuff. It was an event film like Jaws or what have you. And one of the first sort of real big event films of that era. And but the sequel was just a total disaster. William Peter Blatty wrote 3 books. And
I have the first one, and that's it.
He wrote 3 books. They were different stories, but all connected to the universe. It's unfortunate. So The Exorcist 3, which is Legion, is his 3rd book.
It is, yes.
That's a 3rd book. The second movie, The Heretic or whatever it is, had nothing to do with Blatty's second book. It was a completely different thing. The second book, which I talked about on a live stream not too long ago, but I couldn't remember the name of it. I posted it to my community just a week or so ago. The second book in the Exorcist trilogy of books is called The Ninth Configuration. And it was about, I believe, and there is a movie as well from I think 1980, directed by Blatty, who also directed Legion. I haven't seen The Ninth Configuration, but it is for all intents and purposes, a sequel to The Exorcist. It's a sequel, but it's not a direct sequel in the sense that you're following the same characters. It's just in the same universe, very much like Legion, The Exorcist 3 is with George C. Scott. But here we are, 40, 50 years later now.
50. It's hitting the big 50 this year. Damn.
It's unbelievable. And they're pretending all the others don't exist. And they're...
Wait, just think about that, bro. Just for a moment. I know,
50.
50 fucking years. That's nuts to think that that's now how old this movie... When did it come out? April of 73?
I'm not sure. Not sure.
Someone will let us know in the chat.
Yeah.
But that's just bonkers. 50 years, dude. Holy
it's crazy.
Shit.
It's crazy.
That's scary because it just makes me realize we're that train for you and I is we're full steam ahead towards it now.
Yeah. Another. Listen. We're going to be 44 in a few months.
Yeah,
that's only 6 years away from 50.
I know. Oh my god.
Okay. So. How do I feel about this? How do you feel about this? How do we all feel about this? Obviously, I get a sense that the general horror fandom is probably skeptical, especially those who weren't happy with where David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy went. But here's how I feel. So, The Exorcist is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I've talked about this before on the channel, but I'll just give the cliff notes of kind of how I feel. I am cautiously optimistic because I think... I always like to be cautiously optimistic rather than pessimistically cynical. I want to believe that come October, when this Exorcist sequel comes out, erasing everything else, a true sequel to The Exorcist, we'll call it, even though we kind of had that with Legion, that this is going to be really, really good. My worry is it's a very different world now. And we've had so many exorcist, possession movies over the years. People who've tuned into me know that I talk about this, and I make this point a lot, but it's true. We are a very desensitized society now, not just with what we see, but the psychological ramifications of really good psychological horror movies as well. We are a very desensitized, by and large, society. And we've seen so many exorcism movies and so many demon possession movies, and I always say that how many times can we see a movie, not there's anything wrong with it, and sometimes it can be really creepy if it's done really, well, but how many times have we seen this, and it's a girl that's, off the bed and she's levitating. And
the only other Exorcist movie that I really enjoyed a lot,
The Last Exorcism?
No, was Exorcist of Emily Rose.
Yeah, that's a really great film. Movie. That's a great film. That's a great film. When you are going out to make a sequel to The Exorcist, one of the granddaddies of them all, my hope, and I have no evidence to suggest or to say that they're not doing this. My hope is that it is more than just crazy girls levitating off a bed, and I understand that you have to entertain. I understand that you have to take some creative liberties. I get that. But this is sort of like, what is this going to be like? Because the original Exorcist was really about, Karis and Marin and
well, it was about Damien finding faith.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that it's about him, right? Yeah. And it's about how
people think it's about her, but really it's about him. Remember when she says, "When you and I become one," to him?
Yes. Right. Of course. And that really is where the heart of the movie is. The Exorcist, and I get it, when we think of The Exorcist, we think of the 360-degree head turn. We think of the green slime. We think of Reagan and you need that. You need that.
Those hits are coming in this.
Of course. And you need that. That's the payoff. I guess what I'm talking about is, and I have no evidence to suggest they're not going to do this, but I just, I sound like a broken record and beating a dead horse here, but if there's any movie where this applies, it is The Exorcist, and that is slow burn. Build me up. Take your time. And he doesn't mean
slow burn like a 3-hour film either.
No, I don't mean boring. I mean, it's all about pacing. It's about...
Dave just wants layers and layers.
Well, but in a lot of cases, this is a movie where that needs to... That kind of thing has to happen. The first Exorcist, as you said, it's about Damien, how he's lost his faith. He feels guilty because of the death of his mother. He meets a girl. He ends up sacrificing himself, sacrificing his own life to save a little girl he's never met. And, because when he first meets Reagan is already well into the downward spiral and possession by Pazuzu. She's already talking like this, right? I mean, Damien never met Reagan, ever. Right. And so he made the ultimate sacrifice to save a little girl that he's never met. So anyway, we can go on and on about that, but that really is that's the part of the Exorcist story that I think sometimes gets overlooked when people talk about, not everybody, but when people think of, there's real heart there, there's drama. You know what I mean? It's not just about, the payoff. And so I'm just wondering, are today's audiences, like, to me, if you're making a sequel to The Exorcist, it's got to be mature. It's got to be, there's got to be drama. It's got to be a character-driven movie rather than a plot-driven movie. For the most part, this has got to be about character and who these characters are and whether or not, and then you can get to the creepy stuff, which is kind of the icing on the cake. And if you kind of draw it out a little bit and then there's a big payoff, it can really be effective. It's different. It can't be like The Conjuring. The Conjuring is a demon possession movie, but it's a haunting. It's a little bit of everything. It's a haunting. It's more Hollywood. It's got the more Hollywood sheen on it, and that's fine, and that works for that. But The Exorcist, I think, it needs to be a little more subdued, a little more subtle. Anyways,
yeah.
Do you feel the same way, or how do you feel about it, or what are your thoughts on this?
I think people are going to be surprised because I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Look, it's obviously no secret. Look, Stanley Kubrick could have directed Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, and I still think you would have gotten the same reaction from Kubrick, or Steven Spielberg. With this type of with a franchise like Halloween, it's almost going to be next to impossible to make everyone happy.
Yes.
Has the 2018 film warmed up to me since it first came out? Yes, I've said that. I shitted on the movie when it first came out. I enjoy it now. Am I going to watch it like on a yearly basis? Probably not. It'll be a mood thing, or like, because Chrissy hasn't seen them, so I might show them to her and be like, all right, here you go. What do you think? But having said that, from an objective point of view, as someone who appreciates movie and filmmaking, the 2018 Halloween film does what it needs to do. It hits all the right notes. It gives you all the right feels. Michael's back in full force. Decent story, good characters, solid ending. Kills is the divisive one where, some people, like, I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of it. There's a lot of it I didn't like, the political aspect of it and all that stuff, and the undertones to Kills. But I love the visual effects, love Michael killing the firemen. All that is great. Ends seems to be pretty unanimous, and when I say that, it's like 90-10. 90% of the film everyone hated, 10% people liked it. I mean, that's anywhere you go. Doesn't matter if you're on Instagram posts of Halloween movies or anyone. It's negative comment after negative comment, and then maybe you have like one or two people who are like, oh, I liked it. I'm curious to know what Ends did on DVD and digital sales like that. I've been trying to find the number on that just to really give me an idea of how many people really like this movie. I mean, for it to make $100 million at the box office, that doesn't impress me much, because I knew between domestic and worldwide, it was going to do decent. People were still going to go see it regardless, but I'm more curious to know on the DVD sales. Having said that, first off, knowing that the last film that you just released, and David Gordon Green is still human, is getting shit on pretty much by everybody, almost unanimously. And as a creator, don't think that doesn't fuck with you mentally. Like as a creator myself, and I'm sure you can agree on this, being a creator yourself, your goal isn't to do something bad. You want to do something that's going to be liked. And don't think he didn't have nights where he was like, fuck, what did I do? Yeah, I'm sure he has had those moments. So having said that, when I look at the trilogy that David Gordon Green just did with Halloween, it doesn't matter who was in that position directing those movies. You're going to get shit on by the fan base regardless, because no one's going to make the perfect movie. Having said that, he took some creative risks in Ends. There's some interesting plots and stories in Ends and Kills as well, too, except for the protesting shit. And in the 2018 film, which does give me hopes that he can actually probably deliver a solid Exorcist trilogy, because it's not Halloween.
Right.
There isn't this hardcore fan base with The Exorcist. There's diehards like you and me who are fans of it, but we're not. It's not like Halloween to us. Even though The Exorcist is my favorite horror movie, it's not like I look at Halloween. Does that make sense?
Of course. I get it. Well, and it's a different subgenre.
Correct. So I'm actually more optimistic in that what I saw him deliver in the Halloween franchise is that he tried some things, didn't land. Not the decisions I would have made with Michael, especially in Ends, and we don't need to rehash all that again. We know, we've been there, it's done. But having said that, The Exorcist now, he can get wonky. He can get creative because that's The Exorcist. I think he might shock people. I know everyone's like, oh my God, he could 40 different. You can't look at it like he did Halloween. It's a different entity. It's not a franchise. So
no, I tend to agree with you actually, and that might surprise some people. And I think that's probably why I am, cautiously optimistic is because, to your point, The Exorcist doesn't have the lore and mythology that Halloween has.
Correct. Or the fan base.
Or the fan base. And so, there's not like a there's not a, well, no, hang on. Like there isn't like a main antagonist where if you don't deliver him exactly like this and in this way, and he walks like this and he looks like this and the collar's got to be popped and the mask's got to look right. None of that exists.
No,
there isn't any of that. And we don't even know if at this point in the game, we don't even know if the possession that we're about to experience in this new film is Pazuzu. It might be a different
something
demon.
else.
It might be completely something else, and therefore you're not even tied to
that Pazuzu. Like who? Like no one's sitting there like, man, fucking Pazuzu.
No.
Shit,
well,
right?
and there's still a lot of people that believe that Reagan was possessed by the devil, and she wasn't. She was possessed by Pazuzu. Who, I mean, I guess it could be semantics depending on how you look at it, but it was, yeah. So no, I get what you're saying, and I think there is validity in what you're saying. And David Gordon Green, I think, I mean, I've seen a few of his films that are dramas, and I think if he brings that subtlety to this picture and really focuses on character, you see, the Halloween movies for the most part, the Halloween movies are plot-driven stories. They're not character-driven stories. Halloween Ends was more of a character-driven story than a plot-driven story. And the thing that, and I've said this. I said that I have I have a dislike relationship with Halloween Ends. I don't like it. I don't think it's a great Halloween film at all, but I actually really do like the Corey story. I just wish it was in a different movie. Like an anthology.
Not the end of a trilogy.
Right. Like maybe, it's an episode of, the anthology series called Haddonfield, or something, right? Now, what is it? Now, what is the Corey thing so I like the Corey story of that, but I just don't like the movie. Like, I think it's in the wrong movie. But what do I like? I like the Corey story. Okay, well, like the story meaning that it's this kid who's babysitting, an accident happens, there's a downward fall because of the bullying he's getting. I'm not talking about the Michael Myers aspect to him. I'm talking about the idea that there's a kid that's babysitting, an accident happens, the town blames him, he's acquitted for everything, the town never forgives him, he starts this downward spiral in, the psychological residual effects, the bullying, the hate, all that kind of stuff makes him descend further and further into madness and blah. You could tell that story without Michael Myers. Right. And so now that aspect about a kid who's babysitting and he's acquitted, he didn't really do it, and now the town is bullying him, and that's character driven. That part of the story is the character driven aspect of Halloween Ends. And I think if he, and again, I would assume they are doing this, they know this, they are professionals, but you take that, and The Exorcist sequel really should be all a character-driven film, because that's what the first one was. You know what I mean? And so I sit there and I think to myself, well, maybe if we focus on characters and heart and drama and so we can get emotionally attached to these characters and what they're going through and the struggle between faith and God and, religion and believing and not like go back to that, which it's always been kind of there, but back to that. And then you throw the icing on the cake. It could be something, it could be pretty, we could walk away from it going, that actually was pretty good. Now, will they get 3 of these things? I don't know.
That's a tall order.
That's a tall order.
I mean,
that's
I really
would.
Honestly, I would have just really focused everything on just making one great film and not worrying about
Agreed.
needing to do a trilogy. I think you put too much pressure on yourself that you got to, because like I said, it's impossible for any, like I said, you could have put Stanley Kubrick in, you know, who's one of the greatest directors of all time, you know, at the helm of the new Halloween trilogy, and people are still going to fucking hate on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it. And I just think it just puts so much pressure on yourself as a creator and a director to say, I got to do this shit 3 times and try to make it right 3 times, rather than just do it once and focus on it one good time.
Well,
right?
and like I said, I mean, if the no, I totally agree with you. And I just worry that, you know, it's, I worry that, and like for me, if I was in the writing room,
unless they've got a 3-part story already mapped out that they know what they're doing,
which is entirely possible, but they would have, it's like when an actor signs on to do, you know, they sign on to a 3-picture deal. That doesn't mean they are guaranteed 3 movies. That just means that if the first one is gigantically successful, you are contractually obligated to do the other 2 we're going to do. But if the first one is a colossal failure, well, no harm, no foul. We're not going to do the others. Yeah, but I signed it. No, you signed it on the pretense that, you know, if this is successful, then we're going to make more. But a studio is never going to make an actor sign a contract, you know, just a 3-picture deal, no matter what happens. That's not what it's about, right? It's a business. So yes, they have the rights to do 3, as far as I know. If the first one is hugely successful, they will do the other 2. If it's not, you know, and it doesn't make anything, then they won't. But it all depends what the budget is. I mean, if the budget's like, you know,
that's why my
20 mil and it makes 100 mil, yeah, they'll do the, you know.
That's why my gut feeling is with the first one he does, I have a feeling you're going to see a lot of parallels with the 2018 Halloween film. As I mentioned a few minutes ago with the 2018 Halloween film, the reason why everyone likes it is because it's familiar. It hits you with the familiar beats that everyone likes, everyone enjoys. Got a feeling he's going to do the same thing with this first Exorcist film. He's going to hit you with, like you said, possibly the head spinning, the crazy voice, the levitation, shit flying around, familiar beats, things that people will go, that's the Exorcist. And I'm not going to say that's a bad thing, but like, if you are doing 3 films and you're going to come out the gate, you know, swinging like that by giving people and everybody familiarity, you want to make sure you also leave yourself on this Sunday that you're creating the whipped cream and the fucking sprinkles, and you don't throw everything all in on the first movie, because all you're going to end up doing is rehashing everything you already did in that first film, where people are going to be like, yeah, saw it, whatever, not feeling it like I am when I, you know, because I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. You're going to probably have like a nostalgia thing here with this movie when it first come out. Is it October? Right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be October, yeah.
So, you know, and, you know, people are like, oh my God, it's just like the original and all these things. Like, I just got a feeling that that's what that's going to be like. But if you do that, it's like you're cashing in on everything rather than build, like you said, the slow burn, building it up. It's maybe holding out that if you are doing a 2 and a 3, you hold out on some stuff so that you give people wanting more.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. That's entirely possible that they could do that. Like, for me, like, again, if I was in the writer's room, or you know, if I was tapped and they asked, you know, well, what do you think we should do? I would tell them exactly what I've told everybody here on the show, you know, and I would emphasize that this is like, I know we need to entertain and I know we need to get asses into the seats, but The Exorcist this is the granddaddy of exorcism possession movies. There's 5,721 exorcism possession movies. The novelty of seeing a girl go has worn off. How many times can we see somebody go? I mean, it's always creepy, but it, you know, you've seen it once, you've seen it 5,000 times. There has to be more to it now. So we want to scare them psychologically. We want to, you know, we really about those people. My worry is that the direction that Blumhouse is going? is that are we going to see that, or are we going to see more of a Conjuring-ish kind of movie, minus the haunting? But I mean, in terms of the sensationalism, when it gets to
be honest with you, I wouldn't mind if even they tapped in a little bit of the paranormal haunting in this. They did that a little bit in The Exorcist with things moving. If you remember, sure,
you
had kind of a haunting vibe. Not a lot, but enough.
I guess I'm speaking more about the are we going to see when shit hits the fan and we get to the effects portion and demon possession, is it going to be overly sensationalized, like modern with a polish, or is it going to be more subtle? Because one of the things that The Exorcist, and still to this day, and I know it maybe not if you're younger, but there's a realism to The Exorcist because of that slow burn, and because they drip feed you, right? It begins with Regan kind of, she comes down at that party and she pees on the carpet and she's like, "You're going to die up there." That's kind of creepy. And then it gets to the bed, beginning to shake. And then she's taken to the hospital and she's getting tests done. Like, they really build you up. It's not just like, half an hour into the movie, she's, all possessed going, no, they drip feed you there. And that's important. And there's an eeriness and a mood and an atmosphere to that film that it feels. I can imagine how real that would have felt in 1973. There's almost a, and I say this loosely, but there's almost a docudrama vibe to The Exorcist, if you know what I mean, right? Like, it almost kind of has that little bit of that vibe in there, because she's going to the hospital. You're seeing the doctors talking and the tests being run. Like, it's got that vibe. And I think that, again, you're making a sequel to that movie, the granddaddy, the creme de la creme, The Exorcist, the one that started all the possession movies. You gotta really make sure it feels like it's a movie that lives in that universe. So it's gotta feel like I'm living in that universe. And to your point, maybe they do deliver something, as we've talked about here on the channel, that is familiar, not carbon copy, but is familiar, right?
Sure. I fully expect that you're going to see familiar beats, things that people will know that it's identified as The Exorcist, like it was with the 2018 film. I'm just worried that they're going to cash in everything all on the first film, right, make a ton of money, and then where do you go? From there. With Halloween, you at least you do have breathing room in the sense of that. You don't see Michael fully burn in the fire at the end of the 2018 film. So it is left open to that.
And there's breathing at the end of the credits.
Correct. That too. So, okay, you've got room there that you can.
But you could have left it.
Right. But if you're doing a trilogy, and I don't know how they're setting up this trilogy, is it going to be centered around, one family, or is this going to be kind of a multiple event thing that happens where it jumps like it did with Damien, like from Reagan to Damien?
Well,
you know what I mean? Something like that.
According to the Wikipedia page, and this is Wikipedia, so we always got to take it with a grain of salt, but there are links to these sentences, so they are verified. It says the untitled The Exorcist films, and that's something too to keep in mind, that technically this is still untitled. So, we don't know technically. I mean,
they may change and decide, we're going to call this movie garbage.
We believe that this will likely follow the Halloween trajectory and just call it The Exorcist. But we'll see. It says, and we'd be remiss if we didn't also say that Ellen Burstyn is returning as Chris McNeil.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
so is Linda Blair or no?
No, not as far as we know, but I want to talk about that in a second here. Now, Ellen Bernstein is, how old is she now? She's 90 years old.
90 years old.
And so, so she's up there. I believe her role will be small, not cameo in the sense it's like, like a 10-second scene, but she's already shot her her stuff. And I believe in the big picture of things, it will be a relatively small role. I would imagine that she will probably play the role of that bridge, like, shit's going down. We need to find somebody that knows about this. Do you know what I mean? And they find, and that somebody is Reagan's mom. And then, of course, maybe she'll probably talk about her daughter, and my daughter and I don't talk anymore at the moment. She lives in,
or maybe Reagan's dead. Maybe it came back. Maybe it killed her.
Maybe. I don't think they're going to do that, and I'll explain why. But maybe. But I think that's the role that Ellen is going to play. Is just more of that, like that sort of that person that you go and see. They'll drive over. They'll drive over to her house, and she's living in Connecticut, and she's by the ocean or so. I don't know. She's living in this little home with a nice porch around it, and you knock on the door, and the leaves are blowing, and she opens the door, and she's like, yes, and she's like, are you Miss McNeil? Yes. Okay, come in. And they come in, and she serves them tea, and she tells the story of Reagan. A quick little kind of like, well, I remember when blah, blah, blah. Well, here's what you need to do. You see those types of scenes in movies. And sure. I would imagine that because of her age, I would imagine that that's probably the kind of role she's going to play in this movie. I don't think at all she's like the heart and center of it, and she's like in on the action and getting tossed around. And no, I think she just is kind of that conduit, that sort of that catalyst that maybe, that bridges, maybe at the end of the first act is when they go and they find her, and she's helping to bridge certain anyway, something like that. Not a catalyst, but yeah, a bridge. A person with information, somebody that can help. But anyway, it says the untitled The Exorcist is an upcoming 2023 American supernatural horror film. Blah blah blah. The film is intended to be part of the franchise based on the 1971 novel. We know that. Synopsis is all it says here. The father of a possessed child, desperate for help. Oh, it says it right there. I swear to God, I didn't even read this. I swear. People are not going to believe me. I swear I didn't read this. Honest to goodness, I swear.
You can't swear to God. You don't believe in God.
Okay, I swear on my cat's life. I swear on my career, my girlfriend, everything. I swear. The father of possessed child, desperate for help, goes in search of someone who has had similar experiences. Chris McNeil. I swear to goodness. I will say swear to goodness. I did not read that. I didn't read it. People are going to be like, yeah, sure, whatever. No, I swear. But that doesn't surprise me. That's exactly what I was just talking about. So I think her role is going to be small. Now, that's not really a synopsis. That's more of a log line, if that. But nonetheless, that's the general sort of idea of it. Leslie Odom Jr. Is playing the father. He's a 41-year-old actor. I'm not familiar with him, but he's playing the father. And I don't know who's going to be playing his daughter or whatnot. But
so I think if there's a daughter in this, then you can almost be guaranteed you're gonna see familiar beats, which is fine, and I'm okay with. I'm not against it. It's just how they execute it. Do they come at you all at once, or like you said, do they do it in a nice slow burn for a good payoff?
Right. Exactly. I love how Zach Talk here says, "Oh my God, Dave, you know everything." No, not really, but I think it's. Anybody could have made that guess.
Yeah,
anybody could have made that
guess. Like, I mean, what are you going to do with a 90-year-old actress?
That's exactly my point.
You're not going to put her through anything physical.
That's exactly my point. So that's why I was like, well, it's a process of elimination here, right? So what would be her role in this movie? You would bring her back. You would make her that person she's been through this before. So obviously our character in this movie is seeking help. The medical community won't they don't agree. They don't listen. I need to find somebody. I mean, that's just, that's how these things go. So it's anybody could have made that guess, but I thought it was funny. I'm like, holy fuck, that's literally actually what it says. So, now here's the thing. We don't know if Linda Blair has been asked to reprise her role as Reagan.
Could be keeping it a surprise.
Could be keeping it a surprise, or they could have said, hey, Linda, we're doing this. You're not in the first one. We're going to do our best to make this a hell of a movie so it can be, hella successful. And if it is, then we want to bring you back into the second one. That's entirely possible. Maybe the first one ends like maybe they take a page out of Cobra Kai, and or Batman Begins when Batman turns the card over and it's the Joker card or whatever. Maybe there's something wrapped up, or so you think maybe, or whatever. And then there's like a knock at the door and it's Reagan, you know what I mean? It's like, I can help, and then it cuts to black and roll credits. And that there just, they use that to fuel the excitement of fans to want to see more, right? You know what I mean? It's probably better suited in television, but you can do it in film. Film's probably less. There was a
glitch, but I think it's fine. I think we're okay.
Oh, our stream?
No, it for about a second or so it glitched, but I think
on your end?
No, the stream.
The stream.
Like
okay.
It's something like kind of glitchy, like popped up on the.
Oh.
Yeah, but I think we're good.
Okay. So maybe now it's possible. I would imagine. Now I say this with all due respect. I'm just thinking about who she is, where she is in her career, what she's doing now. Right? She's older. She's I'm thinking that if somebody approached her and said, hey, Linda Blair, we want you to be part of a new bunch of Exorcist movies, that would be quite an offer that I could see her taking, right? Sure. I mean, it's work. It puts her back sort of into the pop culture. I could see her saying yes. Or maybe they did approach her and they laid out the story and she was like, you know what? I'm not interested. That's entirely possible as well.
With her turning it down and the way media is today, someone would have reported on, kind of like with Nev Campbell turning down Scream 6. It's almost hard to keep stuff like that hidden, you know what I mean? And I think we would have seen a story come out by now that, yes, we approached her, she didn't like it, denied, turned down the offer, and that's it. So I think because we haven't seen a story come out published like that she's turned it down and she's not doing it. My gut feeling is that they're trying to keep her a secret, and she might even show up in this one at the end, and that's the continuation that maybe Reagan has to face. So, maybe it is Pazuzu. Maybe it will be Pazuzu again. And as the girl is possessed, that maybe it's Reagan who takes the spirit of Pazuzu on or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
It could be something like that.
I found an article. This is from People Magazine, July 27th, 2021. So about a year and a half ago. So let's see what let's see what Linda Blair says here. People Magazine. So, it's not Billy Bob's, poop.
Somewhat reputable
blog. Linda Blair says there are no plans for her to return in upcoming Exorcist trilogy reboot. Famous last words. Quote, I wish all those involved the best, and I appreciate the loyalty and passion the fans have for The Exorcist and my character, Linda Blair said. Linda Blair is sitting out of 3 new movies planned within the Exorcist universe. On Monday, it was reported that Ellen Burstyn will reprise her role as Chris McNeil in three upcoming films. Now, again, this is it. Who knows if it will be 3? Things can change. This is information that's a year and a half ago.
And don't forget, Andrew Garfield also, and I don't think they asked Tobey Maguire because Tobey Maguire never talks to anybody, but Andrew Garfield also was asked several times about the Spider-Man movie, and he kept saying, no, he's not in it. No, he's not in it. No. And then, of course, we find out he's in it.
Fair enough. Yep. Fair enough.
So, they could be trying to do something like that, keep it a secret.
It's possible.
Because I agree with you. It would be just, what is she doing now? I mean, maybe she just has if she has no desire to do it, then that I understand and I get. But for me, it's just we're so caught up in this nostalgia run right now with Jamie Lee Curtis coming back to Halloween. Nev came back to Scream last year, and rumors of Heather wanting to do Nightmare again and whatnot. So it's come on. Like,
no, look,
am I really going to believe you're going to pass up on an opportunity like this to revisit one of your most iconic characters? But,
yeah.
Hey, maybe so.
Maybe so. Keep in mind, you know, what goes out to the public, you know, is not necessarily the full story. You know, it could just be, she could be very aware that there is room for her, but maybe she's saying, you know, no, because she's or they might be like, listen, you know, we'd love to get you in here, but we're not quite sure. Maybe, you know, so she's saying, no, I mean, who knows? Who knows what will happen? And things can change. Things can change. But she says here, to all my fans asking about my involvement in the new Exorcist reboot, as of now, there has not been any discussion about me participating or reprising my role. She tweeted, the next overlaid on, blah, blah, blah. I wish all those involved the very best, blah, blah, blah. So listen, it's not an ironclad statement. It's not saying that I don't want to be in it. It's not saying I have no desire to be in it. Basically, where the emphasis is on the filmmakers. She doesn't say that I have no desire to be in it. She doesn't say that I wouldn't jump at it. You know, I wouldn't be I have no doubt she would absolutely 100. I'd be very surprised if she said, no, I don't want to be in it. I think what has happened is that there is no role for her in the first movie. But I would be very surprised. Now, maybe I'll be less surprised once we see the story, and maybe we see the story and we're like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. It would be fucking very weird to have her in this movie. You know what I mean? And maybe we watch it over 3 films and we're like, yeah, this would be weird to have her in this trilogy. She's not needed. But at face value, because she is, you know, the face of the franchise, even though she wasn't in any of the others apart from 2, which was a colossal failure, she is that, you know, she's Exorcist horror royalty. I would be very surprised if she doesn't end up in the trilogy somewhere. Maybe not in a huge role, in huge capacity, but I would be very surprised. And she could know that. And she just doesn't want to say anything. You know, they don't want to, because a lot of the times, you know, how you release, not a lot of the times, all the time, how you release information, when you release information, on what medium. Part 2, we're writing it now, but just don't say you know anything yet, because we don't want to get there yet, because we don't even know if there is going to be a part 2 yet. Right? You know what I'm saying? So I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if 3 movies go by and she's not in it. But we don't know what the story is, you know, is it going to, and that's another thing too, dude, is this going to be 3 movies that follow one story, or is it going to be 3 separate stories with 3 separate possessions, all sort of in the same universe?
I'd almost like it to be 3 separate possessions all within the same universe, rather than just, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. If Linda Blair is 100% not in this, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we're not going to revisit, other than the fact that her mom is going to play a small integral part to that's the only tie into the original, is the mother. Right. Then yeah, I think having 3 original stories that somehow are intertwined with each other, with 3 different families or whatever, that might be the better approach. Right.
Yeah. No, I agree. Totally. And so it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Like I said, I just hope that they focus on character and drama. Because that really is the heart of The Exorcist, and that makes it feel more real. The more emotionally attached we can become to the characters, and to their circumstances and to their situations, and the more relatable they are with the things they are going through, the more real it's going to feel. And I hope it does have sort of that docudrama-ish vibe to it, you know, like the first one did. I mean, not completely. It's still a narrative fictional film, and you still feel that as you're watching. It still feels like a movie. It's not like a documentary completely. But there's a little bit of that vibe there. So I hope they go back to that. I just hope it's not overly polished, you know, overly Hollywood, you know, sensational. You know, it's all about that nuance and subtlety when it comes to The Exorcist. That's what makes The Exorcist timeless, really. You know, is that, you know, it's not overly reliant on, you know, effects and you know, they didn't peak too soon. It's not like 15 minutes into the movie, there's a, no, it's not like that. And I don't know. I don't know, but I'm optimistic, because I want it. Like, I always want horror movies to be good. I always do. I know some people might think that I'm a contrarian because I like to rib on some the Halloween films or some bad slasher movies, but it's all in good fun. I mean, in reality, I'm always pulling for whether it's a Halloween movie or a Friday movie or an Elm Street movie or an Exorcist movie. I want it to be good. I want it to be good. It's good for horror. It's good for the franchise. It's good for, movies, so I don't want it to fail. It's just, man, like you said, The Exorcist, it's a tall order, it's a tall order, to do that. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's crazy to think. Any other things you want to say before we jump over to the Q&A?
No, let's get to those questions.
Let's get to those questions. Let's do it. Let's get to these questions. Let's get to I know some super chats did come in. So now's your opportunity to send some in if you want to. If you're watching after the fact, comment below and let Tony and I know your thoughts on the upcoming Exorcist movie, your thoughts on The Exorcist from 1973. Are you worried? Are you excited about it? What, where do you want the story? I guess we could talk about that too, before we jump. Where do you want the story to go? Like, we know it's about a guy, I guess maybe.
Well, we kind of talked about it, familiarity, and familiar beats, we did talk about that as far as direction and
yeah. No, fair enough. I just hope that it's going to be interesting to see where it goes, and to your point, it wouldn't surprise me if they delivered something familiar, not a remake or like but something that feels like it's that universe. To get everybody back on board. Again, because you see, as we've talked about, you see franchises doing that. Let's deliver something safe so people can feel the nostalgia. 80s Tears sends in $5, says, honestly, the best Halloween fan film was just released. Look it up. It's called Halloween Stalks, and it was filmed in Quebec, Canada. I'll have to look that up. I'll have to look it up and check it out. Thank you for the super chat, 80s. Josh McKenna sends in a very generous super chat of $19.99 and says, I love physical media better than Netflix. I grew up on physical media and I love looking at the cover art on DVD, VHS tapes. I think it's important not to forget the history of it. It's sad that it's going away. Yeah, I think Tony and I would agree with that, although you're a big digital collector.
There's pros and cons. Look, I love my vinyl. I will always prefer listening to vinyl records over digital, but there's obviously a lot of convenience, when I'm like working out or whatever, I got my phone, all my Spotify playlists. Same thing with Netflix and other streaming services. There are conveniences to those, I'm in the middle of watching a couple of different old television shows right now that I don't need to go and buy the series. They're on Hulu or they're on Netflix and whatnot. So, there is the pros, and I get it. I didn't have to really, spent $1.99 for a monthly subscription. Football on there, and they've got some other shows on there that I've enjoyed watching and catching up on that platform. So, but I hear you. Like I said, I will always have my love for listening to vinyl records. Look, dude, when you and I were kids, when I was growing up, that's how I started as a DJ, mixing records. Before everything became, actually, it started off with records, and I believe it or not, I used to mix records and cassette tapes. Then it got to CDs, and CDs were the thing. And then now everything is streaming digital, which from a DJ perspective, streaming is like, your laptop, like everything is right there. That is a major convenience. But as far as personally, listening to a good vinyl record on a Sunday afternoon when I'm doing like house chores or some shit like that, nothing beats it, but I get what he's saying. I agree with that.
Yeah. I've always been, I don't have a digital media library at all. I'm all physical media. And I agree. I like sort of the tangibility of it, you know, and you can smell the case and you can open it up. And I loved back in the day, and you got this with vinyl too, but certainly in the early days of CDs, when you'd take the sleeve out and you'd unfold it, and there'd be, you know, all the tracks and all the, you know, the biographies and all that kind of stuff, and the smell. And yeah, for sure. Digital, it's just a file. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing there, you know, of the catalog, right? Unless you buy it, you know, and you own it. But certainly if you are subscribed to any of the streaming services, you know, you are at the mercy of their catalog. If they decide to take something away for whatever reason, they can do it, and it's not up to you. You know, and Netflix does that all the time, because they're always their contracts with, you know, all their stuff that isn't Netflix content. They have the license for a period of time. So, you know, like Top Gun might be up there for a bit, but then it's not going to be up there forever, because it's going to go over to Paramount Plus, you know, and so if you don't have Paramount Plus, well, now I got to sign up for Paramount Plus if I want to watch Top Gun, so yeah, no, I totally get it. There's something, but you know what? This happens with every generation.
Everything.
You know, when vinyl went kind of on its way out, there were people like, fucking CDs and fucking shit and whatever, and then CDs start, fucking goddamn, you know, and yeah, I get it, I do, I totally
and
get
there's
it.
There's something, you know, nostalgia, whatever, romantic, you know, whatever, that you're on a cold winter's night and I'm going through the VHS collection. I'm like, all right, let's pop this in, you know, like in popping in a VHS tape. You know what I mean? Like there's like you said, it's that tangibility, and you're cuddling up on the couch with your significant other watching, you know, a movie on VHS. There's something, it's for us anyways, for you and I, you know, and people who grew up in there's just something like, it's a great familiarity, you know what I mean?
I could not agree more.
Whereas like and I'm not disrespecting people who are younger who didn't grow up with it. It's more of a nostalgia thing. It's like, oh yeah, so this is what it was like. Whereas Dave and I, I do that when I pop in a VHS, that's taking me back to my youth. That's, you know, date night, popping in the VHS tape, and that's how it was. You know?
For sure. And look, as crazy as it sounds, as crazy as this sounds, every generation has that thing. And for somebody who's like 19 or 20 right now, you know,
it's going to be crazy to know what their media is going to be in 20 years.
It's true, but what in another 20 years, what will be nostalgia for them will be like shows like this. You know what I mean? Or YouTube, because we don't know how that's going to evolve. Or these phones, believe it or not, and I guess us too, because, you know, but for a lot of people, remember these? That's going to be like, for us, we're like, remember the rotary phone? You remember the, cordless phone? If you grew up in this era and you've never had a home phone in your life, and you think it's not going to be like this forever, folks, it's not going to be like this forever. And one day we'll look back. Do you remember when we used to carry around these little bricks in our fucking pockets and shit? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So it's just every generation has it, you know. It's going to continue. It's absolutely crazy. Matthew Farisi sends in $4.99, says, I really hope they just do one, meaning The Exorcist. I don't see how they stretch this into 3 movies. I think that is the biggest problem.
Money. All about money. They just want to make that money. That's it.
Give me that cheddar. But to Tony's point, and he's right, is, you know, I asked, you know, well, I guess we both kind of agreed on this, is that maybe it's best to do it as individual stories. And that way you're not, you know, taking one story and trying to stretch it over 3 movies.
Stretch it out for 3 movies, correct.
Right. Yeah. I think that might be the better way to go. But it's
connected. It's connected, but it's not,
Yes, it's still in the same universe. It's just that now this is a different story that's happening like on the other side of the country, or in another country, you know, something like that. But yeah, no, we hear you. Movie Chat and More Part 2 says Megan was cool. Are you guys going to watch it? I'm definitely going to watch Megan, but I haven't seen it yet. I'll wait till it comes to streaming.
And I'll wait till Dave watches it to tell me what he thinks of it. And then if he likes it, I'll watch it. If he doesn't, then I won't. Because typically Dave and I, like with Smile, like I was not really interested in seeing that movie. I saw the trailers. Trailers didn't do anything to me. I was like, all right, I'll pass. And then Dave saw it, and we talked about it last week, and he said it was really good. And Dave and I tend usually to see eye to eye on movies and similar tastes and whatnot. So I was like, what the hell? I'll rent it. It's only a couple bucks, right? It's not gonna. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was like, oh shit, like it, because it had a very It Follows type vibe, which I really like. It Follows. So I was like, this is pretty. The ending kind of fell flat for me in Smile, but other than that, I mean, endings are really tough to do anyways in any movie. It's always hard to deliver that payoff because you've done such a great movie, and now you're at the climax, and it's like it's so tough. I wasn't totally on board with it. It wasn't like the worst thing in the world. I would have really thought that out just a little bit more to deliver a really good payoff. But other than that, so as far as this, I've seen things on this Megan thing, and I'm like, I have no really interest to go see it at the moment. So I'm going to wait to see what Dave thinks, and then I'll watch it.
Okay. There you go.
If Dave hates it, then I'm going to be like, all right, then I won't watch it.
There you go.
That's how I judge my movie watching what Dave says.
That's all right.
Tony just follows everything Dave does.
Oliver Mercer sends in 10 pounds. Thank you, Oliver, and says, hey, Dave and Tony, Linda Blair does look after dogs within a dog fountain now. I'll never say never regarding a surprise at the end. Plus, Pazuzu was only mentioned in Exorcist, and Linda Blair.
You cut off on me. What was that?
Linda Blair looks after dogs.
Hear you right now.
You can't hear me right now? Hello?
No, you totally cut. You dropped. Like you started to read it, and then I don't even know.
Yeah, I can. It's the Zoom thing here. I can see that. Sorry. Okay, so the question was, Linda Blair looks after dogs within a dog fountain now. I don't know what that means. I guess that's her job now. She looks after dogs within a dog fountain. I'm not sure what you mean there, Oliver. Foundation, maybe. I'll never say never regarding a surprise at the end. That's true. Plus, Pazuzu was only mentioned in Exorcist 2. Okay. I'm trying to think back on whether or not his name was mentioned in the first one. His name might not have been mentioned in the first one. That's true, but that's who it was supposed to be, though. She was possessed by Pazuzu. Yeah. And then Max sends in $5, says, did you do any voices on Little People or Wish and Poof? Firefighter Sam, my son had those shows on all week. Think I recognize your voice multiple times. Well, I did the first two. No, you mean Fireman Sam? Yes, I was. So Fireman Sam is a Welsh. It's an English cartoon going back to like the 1980s. And it was stop animation when it first began. And then when obviously animation changed into 2D animation, they started to make the shows that way. And then the show started to come over to North America, but they wanted to redub the animation, the voices with American accents or North American accents, if you will, to appeal more to a North American audience, to kids, obviously. And so I was involved with that, but I only did. What happened was that a voice actor by the name of Joe Marth, I believe his name was, tragically he passed away. And this is never how you want to get a job, but hey, you know what? It's show business and things have to go on. He passed away, and he was doing the voices for the American version for Gareth Griffiths and Fire Chief Boyce. And then he did that for a number of seasons, and then he tragically passed away of a heart attack. And I got a direct email from the casting director, because she knows me, because I worked on Doki, the cartoon Doki, with her. And she said, Dave, did you hear about Joe Marth? Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. No, I didn't. Holy shit, blah, blah, blah. And she said, would you like to it's kind of an awkward thing. Like, how do you know what I mean? Like when somebody passes away, it's like, how do you don't want to be insensitive, but basically it was like, do you want to take over for Joe and for his roles? And I said, of course. Yeah. I mean, I'll do it. I think I'd only met Joe once, but a really, really, really nice guy. And so I took over those two roles in, I think, season, I'm going to say like 9, 10, and 11 or something like that, or 10, 11, and 12 or something. And I think there was like 1 or 2 like 60-minute kind of Fireman Sam specials that I did, but it's the American version. So if you're watching the cartoon and you hear a bunch of Welsh accents, that's not the show. That's not the version that I'm on. It's the American one. I believe they're on Amazon Prime, but I don't know if all the seasons are on Amazon Prime. So if only like 6 or 7 seasons are on Prime, then those aren't the seasons that I'm on. That's the seasons that Joe is on. But yeah, anyway, but I've shared some clips in the past on social media of me in those 2 roles. So yeah, maybe. I'll say maybe it was me you heard. It's entirely possible. On Fireman Sam, it is, but the other 2 shows, no, I'm not on those shows. I've never heard of those shows. Okay, let's, did we get all, no, I don't think there's some more super chats came in, right? I think. Yes. Movie Chat More Part 2 sends in another £2. Thanks, Richard. Says, Dave, there's one thing you'll hate about Megan. Okay, well, we'll see. Don't tell me. Static sends in $2, says Spielberg and Rob Zombie have lost their touch. I disagree.
Well, I mean, like, what are we talking about with Rob Zombie? Musically, he just released an album that was fucking badass. So he hasn't lost his touch musically. I love his new album. Movie-wise, I mean, look, I mean, he was never... first of all, putting him in the same sentence as Spielberg is like sacrilegious. I mean, like,
it's like putting me in the same sentence as Wayne Gretzky.
Zombie did what he wanted to do with his films, and it is what it is. I don't hate the guy for what he did. I mean, it's what he wanted to do. I mean, I'm disappointed on a couple aspects with the Munsters, because I do believe the Munsters could have been a really good movie. One, if he stuck to his guns and did it in black and white, and didn't cast Sherry Moon as Lily. I mean, she was really the one that kept taking me out of the guy who played Grandpa and the guy who played Herman. Fucking awesome. I have no complaints.
I still haven't seen it,
but it's her. She's not a good actress, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, I don't know what fucking, I mean, the fucking blowjobs in the vagina must be amazing, because why not cast another actress to play the lead in that part? I don't get it. Why is it always got to be your wife, bro? Your wife, I'm sorry, but she can't act. She's great in the role of Baby in The Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses. She's good in the movie Lords of Salem. That is that's a decent flick. Other than that, she's not a good actress. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not gonna. I mean, she's attractive. She's good to look at on screen, you know. But like, okay, like, you know, but as far as losing it, he never really had it in the movie side of it. But musically, he's still kicking ass, you know, and he's better than ever musically. Spielberg, what the fuck? What do you mean he's lost it?
Well, Spielberg, no. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with Spielberg. People, he rose to stardom in the mid to late 70s, right? And delivering blockbusters. And, you know, and I think people expect that when they hear the name Spielberg, they're expecting to be transported to a different world in kind of that blockbustery sense. Spielberg, over the last 20 years of his life, he's been there, done that. Jaws was a blockbuster. You know, right. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was a blockbuster. Raiders of the Lost Ark, blockbuster. E.T., blockbuster. Temple of Doom, a blockbuster. Jurassic Park, blockbuster. You know, Last Crusade, blockbuster. You know, in the 90s, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, blockbusters in a different sense, of course.
His new movie has me very intrigued. His
The
life
Fablemans,
story
yeah.
here. Yeah.
But here's the thing, is that he's older. And as people age, he's been there, done that. The last sort of Spielbergian type movie that we associate with him for was Ready Player One. And I thought that was a fantastic movie. If Ready Player One
haven't seen that
it's
yet.
Great, dude. You'll love it. If Ready Player One came out 30 years ago, it would be like it would be just as much of a classic to, of course, it'd be hard to do with all the effects, but hypothetically, if it had come out in the 80s, it would be one of those 80s classics. The problem is that we're desensitized now. We've seen it all. We've been there. We've done that. So when Spielberg delivers something like a Ready Player One, which is hella entertaining and so much fun, a great cinematic experience, we kind of go, oh, you know, because there's so many of those movies now. Spielberg was doing it when nobody was doing it. And then everybody started doing it. And now when Spielberg does it, because everybody's doing it, it kind of feels like, well, you know, been there, done that. But look at his dramas. I mean, look at Munich, look at Lincoln, you know, look at West Side Story from, you know, last year that was nominated for Best Picture. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard people that I trust say it is phenomenal. It is. So there you go. You would never have guessed that he's never directed a musical before. It is. Some people have said it's better than the 1960 original, or the 1960s original. I forget what year it was. That's a tall order. But this is Spielberg.
A classic musical.
This is Spielberg. And so I think when people say he's lost his touch, what they really mean is, and I don't pretend to say this is what you're saying, but in a general sense, because he's known as that blockbuster filmmaker, and he's consciously decided to make smaller films more about, you know, characters and drama, you know, and things like that. I think people miss, no, I want the big bum, 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 bum. They want that. And it's like, yeah, but he's 75. Not that he can't make it anymore, but his tastes have changed. He's been there, done that. He wants to do other things. But watch his movies. Watch Munich. You know, watch, you know, Lincoln. Watch West Side. I still haven't seen the Fabelmans yet either, but I hear it's fucking fantastic. So much so that it's the front runner to win Best Picture and Best Director this year at the Oscars. So, you know, but is it a big blockbuster with all kinds of special effects? No,
it's a biopic.
Essentially, yes. It's a fictionalized version. When I mean fictionalized, obviously
sensationalized, hyper, like, you know.
Yeah, it's about his life. It's about about the movies and love of movies, and it's about his life growing up in Arizona. So the Fabelmans are really the Spielbergs, but it was smart to call it something else and just kind of so it can be more of so the audience can be more can relate to it more. I think if the movie was called The Spielbergs, that would be a tough thing to relate to. So yeah, I don't think he's lost his touch. He's just not the Spielberg we remember because he's not doing those kinds of movies. But here he is, you know, in his 70s, and he had done Munich and the
other thing too, he's got nothing to prove at this point.
No, not at all. Not at all.
You know?
He's the as of right now, of course, we'll see where James Cameron is after Avatar 2 here. But as of right now, he is still the most commercially successful director in the history of motion pictures. I think he's the greatest filmmaker that's ever lived. Not because I think every movie he's done is great. And I'm not taking anything away from like the Kubricks and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about sort of what he did at the right time for the era of filmmaking. And in terms of pop culture, he changed pop culture. He changed the way that movies were made. He changed the way that movies were marketed. And, you know, the name Spielberg is really a synonym for Hollywood, you know, and so it was and it's not just the movies he's directed, it's the movies he's produced. Movies he's produced like Gremlins, the Back to the Future trilogy, the Goonies, you know, God, there's so many in there. And so it's,
didn't he have a hand in helping too with the Star Wars films?
Like no,
I thought him and like, you know, because
him and Lucas
and him are buddies.
They would definitely talk. But he wasn't directly involved. Oh, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I know that.
Too. Right.
Yeah. So he's somebody that he was that name, and there's names before him, and there'll be names after him. But he's that somebody. He's that it's when Hollywood was changing. He's part of what's known as the new Hollywood, where, you know, it's your Scorsese and your Lucas and your Spielberg and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It was coming up. They were more like a Rat Pack kind of indie filmmakers that were coming up, and Hollywood was changing, you know, and I mean, he was that name that sort of sprung to the forefront and changed the way that movies were made and marketed, thanks mostly to Jaws, you know, and then, you know, it spawned this new era of blockbuster filmmaking, the likes that nobody had ever seen before. And then came the 80s, you know, and he was the man in the 80s when it came to directing and producing. Because remember, it's not just the films he directed, like I said, it's the films he helped produce or helped to spearhead. Poltergeist, right? There's another one there. Films he helped produce, films he would organize and you know, it's just. So again, it depends on what we're measuring, right? You know, in terms of when we say the GOAT, it depends on, well, how are we measuring it? I think he's a terrific filmmaker. Absolutely. He's one of the greats for sure. But in terms of his influence and his mark on the filmmaking genre, the filmmaking medium, he is without a doubt the most influential filmmaker that has ever lived. And that's, you know, it's unreal. So has he lost his touch? Well, it depends on what you mean by that, right? Is he making blockbuster movies every year now? No, but he's still making some pretty good fucking movies, but they're more dramas and about character and things like that, which you should go see. You should see The Fabelmans. Yeah, Frank says Duel. Duel was his very first movie was we should watch that here on the channel. That would be great. Have you ever seen it?
Long time ago.
Duel is great. His very first movie was a TV movie, 1971 with Dennis Weaver. Fucking great film. But yeah, so and Ready Player One, dude, is great. Watch it. You'll sit there.
I'm getting to it. I'm going to get to it.
You'll sit there and be like, and it came out in 2018. And I watched that and I think to myself, this came out in 2018. Spielberg goes away, makes a bunch of dramas like Munich, War Horse, Lincoln. You know, he does like an animated movie called Tintin. And then all of a sudden he comes back and he does this. It's like, geez, he hasn't lost it. I mean, he knows how to make like I saw it in the theater and I was like, this is fucking great. What a great movie, you know? And the Shining reference in Ready Player One, you're going to fucking love.
Don't tell me.
Okay. You're going to fucking lose your mind. He did such, because obviously Kubrick and Spielberg were really great friends.
Very close
you
friends.
know, really close. And he loved Kubrick. Kubrick was, you know, one of his idols, you know, and I mean, and Kubrick, one of the greats of all time. Absolutely. And so he did a nice little tribute to The Shining in Ready Player One. I won't tell you, but fuck, is it good. It's really, 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 really well done.
Good shit.
And Zombie, I don't know if he ever...
You know, I wanted to piggyback off of something you said as far as like, you know, with the movie going audience today, like we're so desensitized because we see everything. And I agree with that. I think where we need to get back to, honestly, with films is we need to get away from these, you know, these comic book movies, these blockbuster films. And we really just need to get back to just really basics of just simple, good storytelling.
Right.
Which is what makes a good movie. That's it. You know, you don't need all this hoopla and special effects and craziness to make a good movie. You just need to tell a good story. And I think you're starting to see a bit of a resurgence for it. I'm very excited to see Brandon Fraser's movie, The Whale, with Sadie Sink. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm very excited to see that movie. I'm really excited to see Fableman as well, too, at some point here. And, you know, I look, like you said, you know, unfortunately for this young generation coming up behind us, there's nothing that they're going to sit there and go, oh, wow, they've revolutionized. The only thing that you're going to see different is that the CGI and special effects obviously will get better. Of course, that's just to be expected. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes in the future. But as far as the movie going experience, I do think not only do we need to get back to the basic, simple storytelling, but even if anything, Top Gun Maverick proved it last year, is getting back to those summer action adventure blockbuster films that we had in the 90s, you know, whether it's movies like Twister or Armageddon, you know, are these, you know, epic, you know, well, Twister is a classic movie. That's
well, they're making a sequel.
Yeah, I wish they weren't, but whatever is what it is. But I'm not, like Armageddon. Look, is it like an Academy Award winning, thought provoking movie? No, but it's a fun popcorn movie. Like we're not doing that. We've relied over the last decade. And look, I'm not knocking, the comic book fans out there and the comic book movies, but like, God damn, how many Batman movies are we going to get? Like how many freaking Superman movies? Like how many times can you tell the same? Literally, it doesn't matter if you're not a fan of comic movies, you don't need to watch it to know this. You got a superhero, you got a villain. You see the superhero's backstory, then you get to the middle part where the superhero is learning its identity. The villain's also starting to take over and do some shit, and then you get the third act where the superhero comes and saves the day. That's pretty much that's every comic book movie there is out there. Even if it's a 2-part movie, it's still going to end the same way. You're always going to have your heroes triumphing over the villains. And it's just like, how many times can you recycle and tell that story over and over and over again? And it's just like, I think we need a break from that and just get back to just basic good storytelling with good movies. Like remember the 90s, you had Good Will Hunting,
Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile. Of course, those are based on books, but stories.
You know what I watched the other night and I hadn't watched in a while, which is a really good fucking drama thriller movie, Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia Roberts.
That's a great film.
Fucking great movie.
It's also a good early 90s movie. It's got Bob Hoskins in it. And, what's his face? I forget his name now. It'll come to me. It's called Shattered. Early 90s movie called Shattered is a really good movie.
Right. So it's like, we need to get back into some of these.
The hand that rocks the cradle.
Hand that rocks the cradle. Some of those good, old school style movies, which they still make them. They don't push those movies to the front of the line anymore. They're being made. We need to start pushing those more to the front of the line. And like I said, we need to get back into some of these fun, just simple, fun action adventure movies that we and again, like I said, Top Gun Maverick proved it. It can be done still. There is a market for it, and
for sure.
You want to go and just, have fun. You're not taking it serious. You're eating popcorn. Shit's exploding. The world is ending, and Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck are saving the day. Yeah, no, I get you, man. And I think it comes. There's a lot of factors, right? I mean, obviously, I know I'm going to get hate from this comic book fan. No. The budgets of films have gone up and are expanding exponentially and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the movies you talk about, like those, and I'm not, obviously, you know this too. They're there. They're just not pushed. They're not marketed and pushed to the forefront like the blockbusters are. Because when you make a movie that costs $250 million to make, you have to make that money back. So all the ads we see, all the posters we see, all the GIFs we see, all the memes we see, all the forums we see are running. That's the fan base. And the reason why, part of the reason why the superhero genre, you can call it a genre, I guess, is everywhere is because they cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make. So it has to be everywhere. It has to be in your face every fucking 5 seconds to remind you that it's there, because you've got to, because they want you to go see it, because they need to make their money back and then some. And a lot of the smaller pictures that cost like $5 million or, or even less than that, obviously don't get the same marketing push, because they're not spending as much money on those, and they'll just go straight to streaming or whatever. But there's been some movies, dude, on Netflix. Like there's a movie on Netflix called Run. There's a movie on Netflix called Run. If you guys haven't seen this, hang on. Oh, Run. What was the one that I just said? The Pale Blue, the Christian Bale movie. Pale Blue, whatever it is.
Pale Blue Eye.
Yeah, that's a great fucking movie. I enjoyed that. It drags a little bit, but if you're into like old school detective style, like I love that shit, Sherlock Holmes, like especially in that type of era, the 1800s, I fucking love that shit.
For sure. There's a movie I came across on Netflix a couple of years ago called Run, and it stars, why am I forgetting her name now? For fuck's sakes, show me her name. It's not showing me her name. Oh, no, there's Sarah Paulson. It stars Sarah Paulson. And the synopsis is just Chloe was raised by her mother, Diane. Diane is played by Sarah Paulson, in total isolation. Her mother has totally controlled her since she was born. But now as a teenager, Chloe is starting to explore her mother's secrets. It's essentially that Chloe is basically she's sick and her mother is taking care of her. But Chloe begins to suspect that her mother is keeping her sick. And so and so I watched this. I had never heard of it. This is like a year and a half ago. I'd never heard of it. I'm just perusing Netflix, trying to find something to watch, right? And I see this movie Run, and I read the synopsis on Netflix, which is kind of in the vein of that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let's just check it. I watched it. It's fucking great. It's fucking great. It's great, but did this get some big push? How many people in the chat room right now know about it? I'm sure some people have heard of it. Some people may have seen it, but I bet you there's a few people that are like, I don't even know what this means. No, because it doesn't need to be in your face.
I didn't even know it. And I like, what's her name that you said? Sarah Paulson.
Yeah.
I like her.
It's great. Yeah. There's another film I watched on Netflix and it escapes me now. It stars the actress that played what's her face in the Swedish version of films of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Kicks the Hornet's Nest and those films. The actress that plays the girl in those movies, she's in this film. It's not a Swedish film. It's an English film, but I forget the name of it now, but she's this mother who lost her child in, I think, a fire or something like that at a hospital or something. And she I think she meets these friends or whatever, and their daughter, she's convinced that their daughter is her daughter, like her real daughter that supposedly died in a fire, right? We've seen these kinds of stories before, but man, was it good. And I won't tell you what happens, and I won't tell you whether it actually is her daughter or not, but by the end of the movie, I'm like, that was a great, 110, 90-minute thriller. That was really good. I had never heard of it.
Same here when I discovered the one that just came on Netflix here, and I didn't even know it existed. Prisoner with
Prisoners.
Gene
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman. That's a fucking great movie. Like more movies like that. Like we need more of that shit out there done on it. And look, like you said, the media has changed. A lot of these movies now are going straight to Netflix or being made by Netflix and or Peacock. I know Peacock now is starting to really step up their game. There's a slasher film that they just did here that's getting really good reviews. It just came out. Fucking your buddy there, Drum Dums, just did a review on it.
My buddy.
Well, you know him more than I do. I don't know him.
No, I understand. Yeah, no, I love Lee. He's great.
Yeah. God, he just did.
I thought you were going to mention somebody else.
No. He just did a review on it, and
I don't know.
Well, anyways, that's getting so Peacock is stepping up their game as well too. So these movies sick. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So it seems to be a lot of people seem to be digging it. So these movies are out there, but the problem is like they're not getting the push that they should be getting. And I never even knew this movie would have existed if Lee didn't say something about it and it showed up on my feed because I'm following you and
right.
It's going to have him pop up and wham and whatever.
No, for sure.
I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So, I mean, it's good we have YouTubers that do this, that bring attention to these movies, but they're not pushing it, and they're not putting these movies in theaters. So we don't know about it. I do think the theater is changing drastically. I don't think the theater is going to be like it is in the next 10 years. I think it's going to be, I don't even know if it's going to exist, to be honest with you, in 10, 15 years from now. I don't know because of all the streaming that's starting to happen and going straight to streaming.
Yeah, no, there's lots of and listen, stories like, people get caught up. There really are only about seven plots, I believe it is. And then how you tell that story is how you tell the story. Like that's,
Right.
people get, their knickers in a twist over Avatar, right? Being, it's Ferngully in space. Yeah. And Top Gun Maverick is basically the first Star Wars movie. Like, I mean, if you think about it, right? When you watch it and, you got it's kind of like the trench run. Oh, they don't have the, there's a lot of parallel. I'm just saying, all you Top Gun Maverick guys, just saying. But do we care? No, because it was never told. Like even the first Star Wars movie, like I've said many times, there's parallels to a lot of stuff. We tell stories over again for a variety of reasons, and we can find different. What is original about Avatar is that world. We had never seen that world before. The world building, the technology. That's why you go, right? It's a classical story in this amazing world. Well, who cares? God, when did we become so cynical? It's like, let's just, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have standards, that everything's got to be like that, but every now and then we got to look at things within context. Avatar wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel, for Christ's sakes. You're not saying anything James Cameron doesn't know. It's Ferngully. Yeah. And Dances with Wolves is Ferngully, and Pocahontas is Ferngully, and what do we
like? Duel and Jaws are
right. Jaws is basically Duel. Fucking Joyride is Duel.
Duel.
Do we care? No, who cares?
Halloween can also be classified as Jaws and Duel and all this stuff.
Yeah, you could. It's a bit of a. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying.
But but there's lots of similarities. It's all about are they good stories, right? Or is the plot good? Like, is this an interesting, this is a good plot, and then you try to make the story in terms of the sequence of events and the world and the characters, right? You change that up to present it in a way that maybe we've never seen it. Well, I know this plot, like I know this story, but I've never seen it like this. Wow, this is really cool. Fuck, this is great. So anyway, I would love to have those kinds of, and they do exist. They are there. It's just that the superhero films dominate so much that they have to be in our faces every 5 seconds because those studios need us to go to the movie theaters to watch them. You know what I mean? And then the little movies that are like $5 million that we've never heard of, just kind of like fucking The Ritual. Have you seen the horror movie The Ritual yet from 2017? Fucking great. I never heard of it.
Is that on Netflix?
Yes. I don't know if it still is, but it was when I saw it about a year ago. I rave about it. I'd never heard of it. It's a slow burn. It's eerie. It's a psychological kind of horror thriller. Dude, I watched it. I was like, okay, I saw the thing. I'm like, hey, I read the synopsis. I watched it. I was busting. I'm like, this is like, there's very little I would change in here. Like pretty much every creative decision. I love The Ritual. Great. And I'd never heard of it. And I came across it. It's fucking great.
Well,
and then with every good movie, there's also
still on Netflix, and I'll watch that tonight.
Great. Yeah, watch it. It's very good. I think you'll like it, dude. I think you'll like it. And I'm totally up for like watching it on here or talking about it or, whatever. Anyway, we went long there. Let's see if we can
wrap this up quickly.
Yeah, let me see. I think a couple other ones. So where were we? Megan, Spielberg and Zombie, Spielberg. As of now, I favor James Cameron over Spielberg. Okay, that static says I favor James Cameron over Spielberg. Well, that could also be because you favor the kind of movies James Cameron does over Spielberg, right? Now, you have to remember that James Cameron has also made, I think Spielberg's made over 50 movies. James Cameron's made like 10. You hit the nail on the coffin. I favor Stanley Kubrick over Spielberg and Cameron. It's just a personal preference. For sure. 100%. I'm not saying Kubrick's better than either one. No. It's per preference of movies of Kubrick's that I prefer to watch. 100%. I just took the as of now. When he says as of now, that tells me that we're talking about at this moment. And so I automatically go to, well, at this moment, James Cameron, even though he's only done 2 movies in the last 13 years, Avatar and Avatar 2, they were both what? Big blockbuster experiences, something that Spielberg in the maybe like 7 or 8 movies he's done in that time has only delivered maybe like one that would be considered like that, right? So maybe it's just your preference on the kind of movie, maybe. That's entirely possible. Who knows? Who knows, my man? Who knows? But James Cameron he's fucking great. And he's Canadian. Just saying. New Nightmare, Nightly Gaimo, the executive producer, one of our executive producers on It's Me Billy, chimes in with $9.99. Thanks, Nightly, and says, hey, friends, hope all is well. I just started film school a couple of weeks ago, and just last night I watched Nosferatu, a symphony of horror for an essay assignment. Thoughts on the classic? Rock on. Well, Nosferatu I haven't seen in a while, so I would need to brush up on that. I have seen it, though.
To this day, Nosferatu and Lon Chaney, not junior, but senior, Lon Chaney Sr., makeup as the Phantom from Phantom of the Opera, between his makeup and also Nosferatu's makeup, are some of the best imagery, classic imagery that we've all seen, the classic Nosferatu images and Lon Chaney's Phantom. It's amazing that in all these years later, no one's really come close to even just, when you see Lon Chaney's face of the Phantom and he's giving you that shock look, or Nosferatu sitting there like that. I mean, talk about just nailing it, as far as with the prosthetics and everything like that they did to create the character. Nosferatu is one of the best vampires look of a vampire ever.
Yes.
And same thing with Lon Chaney's Phantom of that time period of the silent film era. Just unbelievable. And just all these years later,
creepy look.
Creepy look. And just all these years later, you think about it, in my opinion, I just don't think, image wise, we've never even come close to that. Yeah. It's a good, definitely kudos to your film school. They're starting you off on the right track. Dave and I have, and we're going to, we don't know when, but we have discussed getting into old black and white films and horror, sci-fi horror and stuff. And that's going to be something new that we're going to do this year, which I'm looking forward to. And who knows, Nosferatu may be one of them.
I'm totally down for that. And here's trivia. We'll see how quickly, this is kind of easy, but we'll see how quickly people in the chat room can type it in. What Elm Street film is there a Nosferatu reference? What Elm Street film is there a Nosferatu reference? Let's see.
I'm gonna without Googling and cheating, I'm gonna guess Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know.
Or you might forget.
No, I don't know.
Now, unless there's more than one, but there's only one I can think of.
I'm gonna go with part 4, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. That's my guess.
Okay.
Without looking it up, without cheating and looking it up.
Okay. Yes, Elise Bratsberg gets it. She gets it. She was the first one to get it. Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Do you remember when he first comes out and he's at the house, right, and there's the shadow on the wall? There's the shadow on the wall with the claw.
That is true. That's
right. That's right. Yeah, when it's New Nightmare, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, when Freddy, or the entity known as Freddy, comes out of the closet. Yeah, because he's like, miss me, right? And he comes out and he's creeping, along in the house. There's that shadow of him on the wall. I don't know if it's in the kitchen or the living room or whatever. And he's going like this as he's creeping along. And that is a Nosferatu tip to the, it's totally, that's what it's supposed to emulate, for sure. And why not take advantage of that? Because Freddy's got the claws, and the bald head, right? So he kind of looks like that. So, yep. Wes Craven's New Nightmare, ladies and gentlemen, that's what it is. And your prize is...
Yeah, I know, Colin. Lon Chaney didn't play Nosferatu. I said he played Phantom. I was talking about 2 different movies. I was just talking about the makeup job they did on Lon Chaney as the Phantom, and the makeup job that they did on the guy who played Nosferatu. I wasn't saying that Lon Chaney played. I was talking about just the makeup in general between the 2 characters are some of my favorite prosthetics, realistic looks ever created in cinema between those two characters. And all these years later, and not only that, but even Boris Karloff's Frankenstein, just it's amazing what they accomplished on imagery and the look of the characters back in the 1920s and 30s that we can't even, we can, but it just, I don't know. I haven't seen anything that comes close to resembling that.
It's a really creepy image. Like there's no doubt about it. It's a really creepy image. Okay, before we go, let's just get a few non-super chat ones. Because I know that I think we've got all the super chats. Got a few non-super chat ones here. Let's see here. Nikki Poo says, me and my friend were just saying how we can't wait to see what you got as the Dream Demon. Absolutely. Oh, for Dylan's New Nightmare. Well, yeah, I'm not sure. It's in post-production right now. I'm not a producer on the project, so they let me know things when they let me know things. So I do know it's in post-production and it's being edited.
When we, because I'm assuming we're going to do a live watch of that on here. I think that should be a super stream with us and Miko.
Yeah, we can see. Yeah, we can try and make that work. That'd be a lot of fun. That'd be a lot of fun. I would assume your first look at it, like a teaser trailer or something, would be, I don't know, maybe March, maybe. I'm not sure. The movie, I think, is scheduled for like a summer release. And again, it's a short film, guys. It's not, it's not a feature length film. It's a short film. I don't know how long, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I'm not really sure. If it's successful, if people really like it and they're digging it and they want to see more, then obviously I think Cecil's got plans for like 4 or 5 installments, and we'll see. But
cool.
It's
you're going to be busy.
Indeed. Let's see here. Not a lot of questions, just basically comments on what we're talking about.
Did you get all the super chats?
I believe I did. Yes. Let me just refresh this, make sure I'm not missing any. I think Knightley was the last one. I think we're good. Yep. I think we are good. Okay. Sweet. And then, just a bunch of statements and stuff, which is good. You guys are talking amongst yourself. I like that. All right. Well, listen, that is going to do it for Tony and I here on episode 176 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. If you're watching live, if you're watching after the fact, comment below and let Tony and I know your thoughts on the Exorcist sequel coming this October. Let us know your thoughts on the original Exorcist from 1973. What do you love about it? Why is it your favorite? Are you excited about the sequel? Are you not excited about it? What are you worried about? What are you not? What do you want to see? Are you optimistic like Tony and I are? Are you kind of just hoping for the best? Jump into the comment section and let us know. Thank you to our great moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Shore, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, Cody Snyder, and Andrew Stevens. You guys are amazing. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for the super chat questions that came in today. Really appreciate it, of course. And also, just thanks for being here. Tony, any last things you want to say?
No. This was good. This was fun.
A lot of fun. This was a good one, folks. This was a good one. All righty. In the meantime and in between time, we will talk to you soon. Cheers.